Hey, everybody, welcome back. We are today doing what we do best, and that is discussing some of the philosophical ideals that we subscribe to. And one of the things that we're jumping into today, we're going to make a small series about this particular subject, which is the meditations of Marcus Aurelius and the whole stoic philosophy. And just right out of the gate of Marcus Aurelius's writings is just grabs you with such a positive, wonderful messages that really go to the heart of helping guide a person to be better in all aspects of life. And Mr. Schmidt, I know you've been anxious to start this little mini series on Marcus Aurelius and the whole idea of Stoic philosophy and how it betters the human mind and spirit and body. So let me turn the floor over to you, sir.
Well, I am extremely excited, and Marcus Aurelius does not let you down. I mean, right out of the gate, it is brilliant and it's beautiful. But I would like to give just a little bit of backstory on the Roman culture and Marcus Aurelius for some of you that might not be so in tune to it and just coming to our channel, which we appreciate it. But the Romans, they saw themselves as very down to earth people. Even the story of their beginning is just one of the gods throwing rocks over his shoulder, and humble people coming out of the earth. And if you don't know, the Romans borrowed a lot of culture from the Greeks wholesale, because south of Naples and Naples itself is actually settled by mostly Greek people. And when you look at the culture of the Greeks and the Romans, even in the Roman times when Romans ruled the world, they thought it was a wonderful idea to have Greek babysitters, Greek speaking people to tutor their kids. They always look back at the philosophical teachings of all the great philosophers, Aristotle, Plato, all those people. And they borrowed a lot of wholesale customs from the Greeks, their arts, history, drama, even their religion. And they thought, why reinvent a reel? This is already here. Let's just use that. And a great example of how they borrowed and used some of their gods in their own play is, they had their own god Jupiter. Well, they just put into their own stories the god Zeus, said, oh, well, this must be talking about Jupiter. So let's just assimilate all these stories along with Jupiter. So now let's get into the actual Marcus Aurelius book and what he started writing. Right out of the gate, he starts off with basically a list of thank yous to who brought him up: his grandfather, his father, his mother, some of his teachers over the day. And I really thought right out of the gate, he got good morals and a tempered temperament from his grandfather. And I was like, could we all be so lucky to have not only had that grandfather, but to actually have that knowledge to know that he's teaching you something? I think of a lot of our time, we look at the elderly as, just cast them out. We don't really care what they did or how they did it. Even look at most companies, once it reaches the grandchild stage, it really starts going downhill at a pretty fast rate. In our culture, we want to ship off our relatives to nursing homes and not take care of them in home like what we should. And I think we lose a lot of that family cohesiveness that we find. Right out of the gate, Marcus Aurelius, first person he mentions is, I want to thank my grandfather. And given the gift of good morals, I think that is severely lacking in our own society.
Oh, just one of the, not one of, the first thing is the appreciation of elders and what they can teach us through their long history of experience. And there's a lot to be said for that. We should look up to and respect our elders, the ones that are worthy of respect, ones that have spent a good portion of their lives trying to be better people and to understand the best they could in their culture what is right, what is wrong, how do we have the correct temperament? Temperament, and he's basically saying temperament in all things. So if someone says something you don't like, you are tempered. You're not flying off the handle. You're not doing actions that would just be seen as sophomoric. Just, I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm attacking you because you don't believe what I believe. He's saying, I learned how to be tranquilo. I learned how to be calm. I learned how to be a better person because of my grandfather. And most people, I'm fortunate enough to have. I got to know both of my grandparents really well, and you didn't get to know that our uh, fraternal grandfather, because he died before you really got a chance to get to know him. Well, he was just an amazing man in all aspects. He was always calm. He was cool. He was always willing to listen. He was always there. He wasn't a big hugger, but he was very physical affection. He had these massive, strong hands, and he would always, just touch you on the shoulder. And that was a way. It was a form of affection. You just knew that he really cared about you. You knew he'd touch you somewhere. You going to eat lunch or dinner at his table. He'd touch you as he was going to sit down. Just little bitty tiny pieces of your grandparents' character that I picked up as a kid that I just thought was the appropriate thing to do. You show affection. You don't overly show affection. You don't not show affection. You are always calm in the face of whoever else might be around you, acting like a baboon.
Which is incredibly hard to do. When you first hear, oh, you learned temperament from your grandfather. Now, if you look back in your life and you think, wait a minute, how many times have I flown off the handle or not been a great listener when somebody was bringing a point to me? You think, wow, you were right. I did not have the privilege of learning from that grandfather, but my grandfather on the other side was definitely like that too. And, he never talked about his life much, but he was a really cool guy. He was one of the first generation Navy SEALs. He was back when they were called frogmen. And if I would have known more about the Stoic philosophies, I would have paid more attention to him. And it's not that I regret my time with him, because I had a really good, great time and memories with him. But I do wish that I would have asked more questions about his life, because they've got a lot to offer, things that I've never done and I won't do. He saw a lot of things, and it could have shaped me into a different person, much more calm, because I have noticed in my own journey through fatherhood, you can get quite upset about some things that really don't mean a whole lot. So when he's talking about his grandfather showed him a good temper, I mean, that's really something to say, that your grandfather had enough time and energy and effort to sit him down and be that teacher, and that he was a good enough grandson to want to sit and be taught by him.
I thought Marcus Aurelius and these Stoic philosophies opened it up perfectly with, you have a good example of how you can help the ones around you that are always closest to you. Whether it's your grandparents, your parents, in his case, nannies, teachers, all these different people. Everyone has a circle of people around them. So if the idea is to surround yourself with the best circle, the best you can, and try to learn if they have a bad temperament or they have a bad moral demons that they struggle with, well, we should learn from those people not to be that way, and the positive people that really go that extra mile to better themselves, we really should pay attention and understand how and why that can help us be better people.
Yeah. And that goes to his next great comment, is that he learned modesty and the morals of the culture from his father. I mean, that is another thing that's sorely lost in our society, is a father and son sitting down and having those lifelong lessons, speaking philosophically. I've seen it time and time again where parents, they don't talk to their kids if they're out, they're doing something, or even if they're just around them. Well, hand them a tablet. Here, that'll shut them up. Let them watch this cartoon, or, go do this. Mm-hmm. Or even the old adage that children should be seen and not heard. No, you want your kids to come and be able to talk to you, so that you can teach them, because if you're not teaching them, you're relying on a whole bunch of other people that you don't know, you probably should not trust, especially if they're an institutional learning center, hence public schools or daycares. You don't know those people. So would you rather you taking the time and effort to teach your own child what's right and wrong, or leave it up to someone else? I mean, if you have a problem with your kid, which, everyone has a little bit of temperament issues and things with kids as they grow up, but do you want to really blame that on somebody else, or do you want to take responsibility like Marcus Aurelius' father and to set him down and to talk to him? Because I think it was a great call on Marcus Aurelius' part to mention that it wasn't his nanny or his Greek teachers that taught him the morals and the temperament of the culture. It was his own father. And his own father was no slouch. Like, he had stuff to do. He wasn't just sitting back baking cookies all day. Like, he was a world mover and shaker. And he took the time away from being the world mover and shaker that he was to train an upcoming Marcus Aurelius. I mean, I've heard it time and time again. People say, oh, well, we're waiting on the next philosophical warrior king. Well, we had one. It was Marcus Aurelius.
Well, I think there's a bigger lesson to learn, too, in that what could we all gain from taking some moments out of the day over the course of a week or a month, several months, whatever it may be, and write down what we have learned from the people closest to us. Who are the people we spend the most time with? And then list them out by name and write out their qualities and why do we spend time with them? How do they help us become better people? And boy, does that exercise really go a long way in helping you understand who you are and how you may be utilizing your time wisely or extremely poorly. And no matter what your goals are, I've always liked this since I was a young man. If you take the average four people, no, not the average, but if you take the four people you're closest to, not your parents, but like four outside of your family, people that you associate with, and you divide their income equally amongst each other, that's probably what you make too. And that same sort of idea goes into, well, how many books do they read a year, those same people? How often do they speak in philosophical terms and help themselves be better? The averages are probably exactly the same as you. So whoever you want to be as a person, you might want to do your best effort to find those people, make a list like Marcus Aurelius, and, well, hey, I probably need to spend time with these people that make me better people or make me a better person rather than wasting time.
At a good point too, you said wasting time into journaling out. It's not only a good exercise for you spiritually, but it gives you a better foundation of what you contribute to your friends and your friends contribute to you. And I know there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, well, I don't have time to do what might be considered the normal cultures, a frivolous activity. But think about it. Would you rather do that and have a greater understanding of you and yourself and the people around you like Marcus Aurelius did? Or would you rather watch the next TikTok video? I mean, all phones have a screen timer on them. So, again, I've said in our channel before that when you don't know what to watch next on Netflix or you're bored, why don't you just take the time to think and consider some of the people around you? Read a book. Think about what you're really thankful for. I mean, in this culture, we think about what Christmas and Thanksgiving, that's really the only times people think about what are you thankful for. Well, I'd like to go back this is the first page of Marcus Aurelius, that he's going right to the people that he's thankful for. They're not in the footnotes. They're not back in history. They're right up front. These are the men, these are the women that made me who I am, and I need to give them credit before I talk about myself. I need to give you a backstory and my foundation, because anybody that's ever built anything, if you have a bad foundation, it's not going to last.
No, for sure. I like it. He talks about his mother directly after that and says his mother taught him not to do and not to think evil. Well, every culture throughout history has had, their definitions of good and evil are dependent upon the time and place in the world. But that was fascinating that the mother, which I think mothers have a uncanny ability to do that, to have that feminine nature of being able to show love like a young boy and a young girl really can't get from anybody else. Like, that's their mom. That's where they learn love, not to do evil. I just think that was fantastic. That's just the first thing my mother taught me, to how to not do and think evil thoughts.
Yet how to be a good ruler, he says in his own words.
That's right.
Because, when you think about it, he then becomes the ruler and the mother of all of Rome. He has an empire under him. So his mother gave him those thoughts, how to be a good ruler, how to really interact with people, to show pity on those that need it, and just overall not to think or do evil. I know in our society we think, oh, we don't want to do evil because there's these consequences for doing evil. But think about your soul and your own mental welfare. If you're wishing evil on people, that still sends a karma loop back, that if you thought those things, in some part, maybe a different reality, you might have done those things.
Well, sure. And could evil also be explained as just simple the lack of compassion, or the lack of not listening, or the lack or the act of blowing somebody off? Or, I mean, that can go on forever about how it is to be a good or bad person, not to do evil. Sometimes we are just too consumed with our own self and our own thoughts that we can easily do things that may not strictly go by the definition of evil, but they're still not good. And I think that's some things we should focus on. I like the way his mom taught him not to be sucked into the habits of the rich.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. It's that old, don't act rich or you put a target on your back. Don't get sucked into that society.
Well, I liked it because, as we've seen throughout all of history, a lot of times when the wealthy also start to get a sense of power. They buy politicians. They have puppets everywhere. They do all these, start to do some eccentric things that are not positive for themselves and not positive for those around them, and destructive to societies. And to me, I took away from that she was warning him not to get sucked into that.
Yes, and that's very easily done, because I think with his own son, Commodus did get sucked into that, because he was raised to be the next emperor, which in Rome at the time, you did not have an inheritance of the crown. You were selected to be the ruler from a group of senators. But Marcus Aurelius said, I can raise and become, I can build the next great emperor. Well, Commodus did not have the moral fiber or mental fortitude that his father had. So he did get sucked into that, and it came with disastrous consequences.
Yeah, for sure. I did like how he jumps right into what a disgrace public schools are, even 2,000 years ago, almost. I mean, he just comes out and blasts them. Public schools are a disgrace, and nothing has changed in 2,000 years. I would say that they're much worse. More than likely. I didn't live 2,000 years ago, but if they were a disgrace then, they certainly are a disgrace now, no matter how well-intentioned teachers and faculty there may be. It is a total disgrace. And I loved how he said, you should learn with good teachers at home. And I am a firm believer of that. I think that the best education is at home, or a group of people getting together to teach their children to have the not necessarily the ability, because I think it goes and stretches to every single class of every financial class of people there is. You can there are infinite amounts of guides and help to homeschool children. And as I've said many times, the homeschooling kids that come out here to the farm and to the church on field trips are infinitely more respectful. They're infinitely more inquisitive, and they have curious minds. They ask great questions, much more than the adults even that come tour the facilities and the farm. they are just brilliant, and they all come from different backgrounds, and I just think it's fantastic. And for him to recognize that 2,000 years ago, and the importance of having good at-home teachers, and to spend liberal amount of time learning. That is just some of the best advice. And this is from his great grandfather, who instilled that into him. That public schools are a disgrace. Are public schools necessary? I'm gonna have to say no.
No, going back to my comment from earlier, is if you want your kid to grow up and have the values and morals that you want, that Marcus Aurelius got from his father, you as a parent have to spend the time to do it. I always find it strange when people say, oh, your kid's not going to learn very good from you because, you're his parent and they're going to, want to play with you or do this. Now, I can understand you wanting to spend the time and playing with your kid if that's what you do, but every kid, their first superheroes are their parents. They get the love and caring from their mother, and they get that, that typical, my dad can beat your dad up, right?
Right.
So those are the people they look forward to first, not institutionalized strangers. So if you really want to be the biggest impact on your son or daughter's life, then just do it. Nobody is going to give you the desire to do those things, but there's so many homeschooling groups that you can go to, so many books, so many things, sources now that you can get to do all that stuff yourself, but nobody's going to give you the drive to do it. Just like we talked about earlier, journaling your thoughts about your people. You could go spend that time on TikTok or Instagram or Netflix or whatever, or you could invest in yourself and your child and actually do the work.
I agree. I think it's a fantastic. All of these things are just from the first page of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, and they're just scream out with wisdom and so much that you can take away to increase your own personal value to yourself and to others.
And think about the empire that Marcus Aurelius's grandfather grew up in. It was a big change and happening thing then. If you look at what my great grandfather would have been, it would have been the same thing in the American empire. You're going back to the Roaring '20s. I mean, there's a lot to be learned from those people that, again, we in our society cast into nursing homes and don't care what they have to say because the next Avengers movie is coming out and we care about that.
Well, having hope sending people into or elderly into nursing homes, unless there's just acute problems that you just can't deal with. But outside of that, it's a travesty. I like how he goes and says that his governess taught never to support any team at sports or in the gladiator arenas. What a fantastic notion, even 2,000 years ago. Hey, kid, don't get caught up in this sports madness. It's a distraction. You're wasting your time. Don't be an idiot. That's basically what his governor taught him, that, hey, those things are fine. Don't get wrapped up in that. Don't start pulling for one team or another. Don't become partisan in one thing or another. That is just, how valuable would that be today? Our country is so divided between what is a male and a female, Democrats, Republicans. I mean, it goes on ad nauseum, all the divisions in this country. And what great advice from 2,000 years ago to don't get wrapped up in all that.
And you can, honestly, we could spend an entire session just talking about that one piece of advice. I mean, just go to the part where he's talking about the Colosseum. I mean, there's the Colosseum everywhere. Football, baseball, basketball, the drains that it puts on a society. And then there's all these other people that are supporting it. And people act like it's their team, when I've never understood that. Oh, my team won the Super Bowl, or how'd your team do last night? Were you on the sideline? Were you practicing with them? No, you didn't do anything. They're not your team. If you met any of those guys, they might act nice and say, hey, I'll sign this for you, but they don't care about you. So why would you spend your time, money, and energy to something that makes no difference.
Well, what we've turned them into, just as they were then, they were uh, just fodder to shoot into the minds of people to occupy them, to prevent them from focusing on all the things that are important, the things that are worthy of sitting down and having discussions about with your son, with your daughter, with your friends. And now in today's world, especially in the United States, we find that people can't really sit down and have an open conversation about most subjects that are really relevant to today. A perfect example is why the speculation in cryptocurrencies? What is the Federal Reserve? Where does our money come from? How is it controlled? Uh, there's a million topics. There's a lot of important issues that are going on right now, and the average, even the above average person, cannot sit down and have discussions about true, real issues. But you ask them who won the game last night. You ask them, oh, how did that player do? Well, they certainly know that. And anybody who thinks that's not by design, well, you are very naive. And
Not only is it by design, but think about it. In their day, the Colosseum was based on violence, much like it is today. The Roman Empire was very imperialistic. They wanted to conquer the world. So you put those gladiator sports and events in front of people, showing blood and violence as everyday culture and society, just like in today. Violent movies, violent video games. What are you really doing? You're queuing up those anxious teenage boys that have two things on their mind, violence and sex. Well, let's give them lots of violence. Let's send them out on the front lines. Let's let them go get killed. Now, do I think violent video games promote violence? Probably not. But what I do think it does is it tones the death factor down. Because when you die in a game, you just get respawned and do it again. And you get that enough times in your life, you think, oh, well, I'll go into this dangerous situation because, I'm invincible. I'll just, like in a game, I'll get rebooted again. Just like in the gladiator arenas. We look at them now and we think, oh, well, they were violent and a lot of people died. Well, it was a show back then, too. Yes, some people did die, but it was much like a movie. It was played out theater. And so they were preparing young boys to go and die.
that's exactly what it is. There's a lot to be learned from this Marcus Aurelius and this Stoic philosophy that is lacking in the modern day major religions, that I think that this sort of focus really helps to be a better person in a practical sense. And because we do live within these confines of this reality that we can see, feel, hear, and touch, then it is important to live inside of it practically and to know and understand ourselves. Hence, writing down why we are friends with certain people. How do we benefit from them? How do we benefit them? And, that's just how that should work. We should spend the time to do that. It's not something that's so overwhelming. A lot of people don't want to examine themselves. Yeah, just like Socrates, the unexamined life is not worth living. And there's probably a lot of truth to that. You can go through your life and not even examine why you believe what you believe. Why are these people your friends? Why are you acting this way? Why are you intolerant? Why are you an alcoholic? Why are you this? Why are you that? Or why are you overly nice? Why do you not drink any wine? You can just, there's all these little things that make up the individual. You should ask and you should know. Not just have some gut feeling, or not just out of habit, or not out of just because, I feel comfortable around this person. Living outside of your comfort zone is probably the best place for you to be.
Speaking of living outside your comfort zone, for him and his status, his governor told him, don't be afraid to work with your hands. Don't be afraid to get in and get dirty. I think there's a big problem with that in our society. There's jobs that people don't want to do or don't think that they should do. Well, Marcus Aurelius right there in the first page is saying, my governor told me, don't be afraid to do it, and I'm going to be the next emperor. Or he was the emperor at that time, and he was saying, don't be afraid of those things.
Yeah, you need to go do it.
Yeah.
You will go do it.
Because you have a greater appreciation for those people that do that.
Oh, absolutely. You understand, as he called it, the endurance of labor. Those things are important to know. so you can relate to the people around you. You can understand what they go through on a day-to-day basis. You just little stuff around your house, like, oh, well, should I call somebody to come do that, or can I fraction out a little piece of time to work on that myself and do it myself? And then you get a great satisfaction whenever you're finished with whatever the task is in the first place.
Or if it's not even a mandatory task, just to go out and do something that you would not normally do, just to get an appreciation for it. Say, you're Fortune 500, CEO. Maybe you want to go out and build the birdhouse just to see how difficult that is. So when you're looking at your next piece of furniture, you're saying, man, that really took a lot to build that. And now I've got, something that I bought because I tried to do that and I failed. And look how much more appreciation I have. It's not just a materialistic thing anymore that, this car is going to make me happy, or, that's going to make me happy. You've actually went in there and tried to do something, and then you have a better appreciation for the people that do build and do serve you. It's really a very valuable lesson.
Yeah, I like how he jumps right in immediately after and says, and don't meddle in other people's business.
Yeah, so no drama back then, even 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, just don't meddle in people's business. And how appropriate would that be today? When you say don't meddle in people's business, if you don't like what somebody is saying, well, don't watch. Don't listen. If you don't like this TV show, well, you don't need this cancel culture of everybody taking everybody off of different venues, such as this platform we're on now, or which is a whole series of them. But everybody is canceling everybody. Everybody is, oh, that person's bad, or who cares?
I think that goes into what you said earlier, that people don't examine themselves. So when something conflicts with what they think they believe in, they don't even know why they believe so strongly in that, other than, I just believe it.
Sure. Well, it really just don't meddle in people's affairs. Unless you're sitting down with somebody and having a conversation with them, and it's an open, honest, good dialogue, well, you're not meddling in their affairs. Y'all are working out ideas, working out some kind of thought process, working out something between you. All of these things that we see propagandized on mainstream television everywhere is setting up for divisions of all types, and it's really meddling in ideas that we really don't even need to be, quite frankly, thinking about. And if somebody wants to say something we disagree with, who cares? As long as it's not infringing upon your rights. You do have the right to vote with your dollar. If you don't like what a particular company is promoting or saying, you don't have to buy their products. If there are certain people in society that are spouting out stuff that you disagree with, and if you don't have a platform to talk to them about it, well, you don't have to listen to them. You can turn it off. You don't have to write into whatever platform, whether it's YouTube or whatever, and say, oh, these people have offended me. I'm reporting them because they said something I disagree with, or what. Who cares?
Yeah.
Don't meddle in their business.
Yeah, why would you waste your time and energy? Because you only have a finite time on this planet. Why would you waste your time in doing those things?
I'm so glad you just said don't waste your time, because he immediately, the next sentence in the first page goes in, do not waste your time with trifling things.
Exactly why I said it.
Yeah,
we did read the same books there.
Yeah, we did. I just think it's great. And I like how he says, do not be fooled by the jugglers about demons and incarnations. Basically, snake oil salesmen. Don't be fooled. It didn't say don't look into what they're doing. It just said don't be fooled. So if you have an interest, if someone sparked your curiosity in some new scientific invention or some sort of health item or whatever it may be, would do your investigation. That's better. You just read between the lines. Don't be fooled.
Yeah, don't be fooled by miracle workers or jugglers. Don't be fooled.
Look into it yourself and and come to a reasonable conclusion based on what you find out. Not just taking them for face value and be fooled by it.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we're fooled by in today's society, just like in his society, is it looks like a credible source telling you something, or an authority figure telling you something, like that person on the news that tells you to do this and this will keep you safe, or do that, don't do this. Well, maybe you should look into why this would actually keep you safe. Maybe even run some numbers off some of those websites that you see and do the math for yourself and be like, well, this is not going to do anything.
Or just read some of the warning labels on some of the things that we are told that is good for you. I mean, you can just read stuff on the boxes of masks, for example, or read the harmful effects of so many things that are told are good for us, and you go, well, wait, that's the side effect?
Well, that gives a great segue into our other products, our sinless line, like on toothpaste. It is probably one of the most vile things you could put in your mouth. It is poison. It's hydrated silica, that little package that comes in a pill bottle that says don't eat. You're probably putting that in your mouth. But we have a solution for that. With our sinless toothpaste, you can keep a fresh breath, and it's all organic.
Yeah, and we will be adding that in the description lines as soon as it's available for sale. Right now, we're just testing it out. When I say testing it, we're doing all sorts of testing on the packaging and such that it's environmentally friendly as well as just absolutely perfect for your mouth.
Because we focus on things like in this book, keeping our planet, keeping us safe and well protected.
And to sin less against our body and to sin less against the world.
That is correct, sir.
And so, Marcus Aurelius, one of the last things on his first page, the last three things that I really took away with it was, don't breed animals to fight. I just thought that was great. Don't breed animals to fight. Basically, which could be humans too.
Well, in his day, obviously it was, because the gladiatorial arena.
That's right. Not fighting, that is a very good practice. And I took this to heart in such a big way, to endure the freedom of speech.
I thought that was a wonderful ending, or not really, right there at the end of the first page is endure freedom of speech, because that used to be one of the things that our country was founded upon. It's the First Amendment, freedom of speech.
The first.
Yeah, the very first. And 2,000 years ago, Marcus Aurelius was standing up for freedom of speech.
I just think it's so contradictory to the whole notion of freedom and liberty and how someone can learn and grow if you, as a society, are condoning by inaction the massive quelling of freedom of speeches from individuals everywhere, from these thousands of doctors talking about the most important issues at hand today. They just shut them up. They cancel their pages, this is just happening everywhere. It's just par for the course now, and there's not a lot of outcry, and as soon as there is, it can't be disseminated to the general population because it's just canceled. And so there is a massive problem with today's freedom of speech, and Marcus Aurelius just addressed it right on the first page 2,000 years ago. Hey people, you better start learning how to endure things you don't want to hear, and don't be fooled. Learn for yourself. Mm-hmm. Learn what it means. Figure out who is right and wrong. Do it on your own. Get your hands dirty. Yeah. Do those things and become intimate with philosophy and listen. Those are important things. We cannot be better people without it.
Well, I think those two things really go together now in today's society more than they ever did. Freedom of speech and enduring in philosophy. Because if you're not cancer culturing someone, what else has happened is we've taken words in our society and deemed these as bad words. And you can't say these, and these are trigger words, and they offend people. Because if you control the words and you control the language, you control the people. So they can even limit your freedom of speech without most people ever even knowing it. They say, oh, well, this word, you can't say it anymore. Well, men and women are exactly the same. They're not any different. No, they are different. Men and women have different roles, and that's okay. It's actually a good thing. If everybody was good at the exact same thing, you would have a pretty dull and boring society. Well, we wouldn't have a society. There has to be a lot of different people that control those roles. So if we open up language and allow ourselves to say things and not be afraid and not be
I got to interrupt you right there. You said a lot of people have to be there to control those words.
no, they don't need to be there to control.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that because I heard you a different way, and I was like, no, that's not what needs to happen, sir.
No.
Great, go on.
No, we do not need to have those controlling words. We need to let that go and use the words that we have at our disposal, because that is the only way we can truly communicate with people is through words and actions. And words is a big part of that. So we need to have a full vocabulary of these words and not let them be hushed up as you can't say that anymore. Because you need all those words to go in depth into philosophical. Yeah. Stumbled on some of those things. That happens here.
I think that I'm so excited because there is so much more to Marcus Aurelius' meditations that we're going to explore in this mini series that just really drive home what it means to be an alive human and grow and be positive and observant and tolerant and have the correct temperament just to live a better life. And if you guys are interested, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and we invite you to come along as we explore Marcus Aurelius' meditations, along with the other many subjects that we cover on our channels. So thank you for joining us. Mr. Schmidt, do you have anything else to say to wrap it up?
I do not have anything else to say other than keep watching, enjoy, and have a good day.